Hello and welcome to the MarineAndReef.com Budget Reef Tank Build Series. This is a series where we set up this 55-gallon aquarium in my office as a budget build. So you guys can see what kind of equipment we pick out on a budget, how we set things up, how we do our maintenance. And for today's video, we're going to show you how we add our first fish to the tank. An important thing to note is that in our last video, we went over cycling the tank, and this is about a week and a half later. At this point, we're getting no more ammonia and no more nitrite readings in the tank, which means this tank is safe for fish. As long as you're getting ammonia and nitrite, the tank is not fully cycled and it's not safe for fish. So without further ado, we're going to show you guys the fish that we've picked out. We're going to put them in the tank, show you how to acclimate them, and keep you guys updated as to how it's going. So here we are at our local fish store, Aquarium Arts in Mesa, Arizona, and we're going to pick out some fish for the tank. Now when I'm picking out fish, I'm typically looking for fish that are easy to take care of and that do a job. It's cool if they look good, we all like look good, but I also want them to do a job. So the first fish that leaped out to me are some of these Aptasia-eating filefish. The great thing is if you add one of these, you shouldn't have another Aptasia problem again. And we don't have one in the tank yet, but by starting off with one of these guys, it'll help prevent us from ever having that problem. So I think that's going to be a great option. The one here, they're also called a leafy filefish. You can kind of see how they get that name. They kind of look like a leaf. There's another one hiding in the corner. They actually can change their color slightly to try to blend in. So you may notice this one's really pale or that one's dark because they're kind of trying to blend in with their surroundings. So the next fish we picked out is this yellow chorus wrasse. What I really like about these guys is they're very brightly colored, but they also serve a job. So these guys are great at eating coral parasites like various flatworms. They could also eat maybe some monthopora eating nudibranchs. And by putting these in at the start, it's going to prevent those problems from popping up later on. If you do get a coral with some parasites, these guys will help take care of it. So I think it's a great fish to start with to help prevent problems that come up down the road. Now the last fish that's going in the tank is not going to come from the store, it's coming from my house. But one thing we wanted to point out is that there's other options. So I really wanted to add some kind of tang. Tangs are great algae eating fish, and adding one tang can really reduce the amount of maintenance that you do on the tank. At home I have a chevron tang that's in a tank with 6 other tangs, and they're just he's getting a little too crowded in there. So he's going to move from my house to the work tank. Here though, there's an orange stripe bristletooth tang. Looks like he's hiding at the moment. This is a great budget option for something that's going to eat algae. Looking at the price of this fish, while there's some tangs here well over $100, this guy is 60 bucks. He's in that back left corner, I can see him. And he's just a great algae eating fish. I would highly recommend if you have a tank the size that we do, a 55, you add some kind of tang, especially one of the bristletooths, to eat algae in the tank. They all look fine to me. Fish! Whoa! Oh my goodness. They'll be okay.
Are you sure you've done this before?
I've done it before. So we have our fish back at the aquarium, and the first step whenever you take your fish home is you want to get the bags and float them in the tank for about 10 to 15 minutes. And what that's going to do is it's going to equalize the temperature between the water that the fish are in and the tank. Now there's a lot more parameters besides temperature. There's the salinity, there's the pH, there's the hardness, and to acclimate the fish to those parameters so that they're used to the parameters of your tank, we're going to drip acclimate the fish. So what we're going to do is we're going to get these bags, we're going to open them up, put them in the bucket we have down below. Once you have the fish poured in there, we're going to show you guys how to set up a drip line and slowly drip water from the tank into the bucket to slowly equalize those water parameters. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get these bags cut open and put into the bucket. All right, so we have both fish in the bucket. One important thing to note is that we could put these fish in the same bucket because these fish shared the same water. They weren't in the same tank, but the tanks are plumbed together in the store, so the water that they were in should be the same. If they came from two different systems where the water was not shared, you'd want to use separate buckets for each fish. Now what we're going to do is we're going to slowly drip water from our tank into their water in the bucket, and that's going to slowly equalize the other parameters. To acclimate the fish to the water, we're going to use a piece of Python airline tubing. This is just a piece that we cut down to a shorter length. It comes in multiple sizes. And then we're using one of these Insta CO2 pipe holders. They come in a set that looks like this. And that's mainly just to hold the end of the tubing inside the aquarium so it doesn't flop out. So we're going to start by getting our end of the airline tubing with the clip on it. Put that in the tank, and I'm going to use the clip just to kind of clip it to the rim of the tank, and that's going to hold it below the surface. Then I'm going to get the opposite end, pull it down. I'm going to suck on it. I need a little bit more down there. It's going to start some water traveling. Then I'm going to tie a knot in it. And by pulling this knot tighter, I'm going to lower the amount of water flow. Now the way I like my drip is I like it what I'm going to call barely a drip, kind of between a drip and a stream. I'm going to call that pretty good. If it's any more, it's going to be a true drip. Then I'm just going to leave it in the water. I'm going to make a note of where the water level is now, and when the water level has approximately tripled or gone about twice where it's at, then the water parameter should be equal or close to equal between the tank and the water the fish are in. Then we're going to use a net to scoop the fish up and put them in. This can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, so we'll catch you guys back once it's time. So now the water in the bucket with our fish in it has just about tripled in its water level. The fish are looking good and they're ready to put in the tank. So now one thing we could do is pick up that whole bucket and just pour it in the tank. But we are not going to do that. And the reason we're not going to do that is because I don't know what was in the fish store's water. Now I really like the guys at Aquarium Arts. I'm sure they're great. But as a general rule, don't trust anyone else's water. You don't know if it has medication in it that could poison corals or something else in your tank. You don't know if it's disease ridden. Hopefully you picked up some disease-free fish, but it's just best to not put someone else's water in your tank if you can avoid it. So we're going to use a net to go ahead and fish out the fish, put them in here. We're using a JBJ 8-inch fish net. My general recommendation with a net is to get the biggest net you can get that's not so big you can't move it in your tank. It's going to give you more margin for error when it comes to swiping for the fish. And we're using the fine fish net because the fine fish net is specifically designed so that fish that have spines have less of a chance of getting tangled in it. You may have noticed at the store that when Ian grabbed the little file fish, he used his hand because he was worried about the spines getting tangled. We're going to use the fine fish net, and I believe that'll do a good job. So let's go ahead and scoop them up. Didn't get tangled at all. Did great. Well, thank you very much. We got the fish in the tank now. We'll update you guys as things come along, including our first maintenance as we add corals and other fish to this tank so you guys can see it mature. Thank you very much. Stay subscribed if you'd like to see more.